You know that feeling when you walk into a room and you just instinctively shrink yourself down a bit to make everyone else comfortable?
Oh, absolutely. Like you just read the temperature of the room and instantly soften your edges.
Right. You turn down your own internal thermostat. And, we usually just call that being polite or reading the room.
Yeah, but it's really an incredibly pervasive coping mechanism.
Exactly. But today, we've got our hands on a newly unearthed production dossier from a digital media company that calls this exact behavior the architecture of hiding. And they argue it is quietly destroying your life's purpose.
It's a heavy claim, but when you look at it, we adapt to our environment so seamlessly that eventually we just kind of forget we ever had a higher setting.
We really do. We just accept the dimmed-down version of ourselves as reality. Then one day you look at the cumulative effect of all that shrinking and you realize, wow, I've spent years capping my own capacity.
Yeah, which is why this deep dive is so relevant. We're going to crack open this fascinating stack of sources to figure out how to, reverse that entire process.
Right, so today's sources, we are looking at a highly structured 7-day production dossier for a video devotional series. It's called Let It Shine, created by Faith Frequency.
Which is really a rare look behind the curtain of digital media production.
It is. And alongside that dossier, we also have their conceptual mind map for the series. And interestingly enough, the lyrics to that classic childhood song, This Little Light of Mine.
Yeah, that song choice is brilliant in this context. And I should mention right up front, the dossier itself is firmly rooted in biblical scripture.
Right.
But we aren't looking at this to push or endorse a specific religious worldview. We're just reporting impartially on the framework they've built here.
Because honestly, what they've constructed is this profoundly compelling psychological roadmap.
Exactly. It tackles purpose, fear, discipline, identity, all in a way that applies to anyone, religious or not, who is just trying to find their specific lane in life.
So our mission today is to trace this entire journey. We're going to start with the internal realization that you are actually carrying something valuable. And then we'll figure out how to drag that purpose out into the terrifying public light of day.
It is terrifying. And the foundation of this entire framework actually hinges on a massive grammatical distinction in the text.
Okay, let's unpack this. The dossier starts day 1 by pulling from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5, where it says, "Ye are the light of the world."
Right, and the source makes a huge, huge deal out of the present tense there.
Yes. It doesn't say you could become the light if you read enough self-help books. Or, you might be the light if you finally optimize your morning routine.
No, it is strictly declarative. It's an identity, not a goal. And that completely changes the psychological paradigm.
It really does.
Because when we treat purpose as an achievement, we are constantly evaluating ourselves. Like, am I good enough yet? Have I earned the right to speak up in this room?
Right. The imposter syndrome just takes over.
Exactly. But the dossier argues that your specific purpose is a given reality. It's not this conditional reward you have to hustle for.
That shift in thinking is huge. It's basically the difference between walking into a pitch-black room and frantically trying to invent a light bulb from scratch versus realizing, oh, wait, I've been holding a high-powered flashlight this entire time.
Yeah, the light is a given. You don't manufacture it.
You just carry it. But, that raises the obvious question. If we all have this flashlight, why is everyone stumbling around in the dark?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the dossier addresses that using day 3 of their roadmap. They pull in a concept from the Gospel of Luke, where it notes that nobody lights a candle just to immediately hide it under a vessel or a bed.
Which makes you walk into a room, you share this ambitious idea, or you show just a little too much passion, and bam, you get hit with sharp criticism or mockery.
And that physically hurts.
It really hurts.
Yeah.
So you learn very quickly that visibility equals vulnerability.
So you build this structure to protect yourself. But the real danger, according to the source, is the language we actually use to describe that structure.
Oh, this part was so confronting.
Right. We rarely admit we are terrified of being perceived or judged. Instead, we dress our fear up in these socially acceptable virtues.
We call it humility.
Exactly. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just waiting for the right season, or I'm just gathering more research. We build this elaborate architecture over our purpose and convince ourselves we're just exercising wisdom.
We totally use humility as a shield for cowardice. But the dossier gives a very severe warning about this. They say hiding doesn't protect the gift, it suffocates it.
Yeah, the squeeze.
Like if you put a heavy glass bowl over a candle to protect it from the wind, sure, the wind can't get it, but you also cut off its oxygen and it dies anyway.
So to fix this, the source prescribes a very specific action step. You have to name the specific fear.
Which strips its power.
Exactly. There is real physiological weight to that directive. In psychology, there is a mechanism called affect labeling.
Okay, what is that?
Well, when you feel this intense, vague fear, like the anxiety of stepping into a new role,
Hmm.
it's being processed in the amygdala, which is your brain's emotional center.
Right.
But the moment you force yourself to put a specific, accurate name to it, like saying out loud, I am terrified of outshining my older sibling, or I am afraid my colleagues will think I'm arrogant, you force the processing to move into the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, which handles logic and reasoning.
Yes. You literally change the neurochemistry of the fear just by giving it a name.
That is wild. So a covered fear operates like a ghost haunting you, but a named fear is just a math problem you can actually solve.
Exactly.
And this connects so perfectly to that supplementary source we have, those lyrics, to this little light of mine.
Oh, right.
I always thought of it as just a bouncy, loud song for kids. But the dossier points out the operative word in the chorus is actually let. I'm going to let it shine.
Because let is an act of release. It is not an act of production.
Yes. A candle doesn't have to strain or flex its muscles or, read a productivity blog to illuminate a room. It just has to be uncovered.
You don't generate the light, you just stop blocking it. The posture is complete surrender.
But, and the dossier notes this, uncovering that light forces an immediate confrontation with the environment around you.
Yeah, you can't ignore the room anymore.
Right. If you stop hiding, you suddenly have to look at the darkness you're actually standing in. And this is where the dossier pivots to radically reframe our understanding of that environment.
They look at day 2, using the Gospel of John chapter 1, which says the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.
Right. The source insists that we fundamentally misunderstand what darkness is, because we tend to view it as an active, aggressive force. But the dossier argues that, both in physics and in this framework, darkness has no actual mass.
It is simply an absence.
It's the void left when light is removed. But I really have to push back on that, or at least play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Theoretically, sure, it's an absence. But practically, if you, the listener, are stuck in a profoundly toxic workplace, or you are trying to help a family member through severe addiction, that does not feel like an absence.
No, not at all.
It feels like an incredibly heavy, active force that is aggressively trying to crush the life out of you.
It feels entirely overwhelming, but the dossier actually doesn't dismiss that lived experience. It digs into the original Greek language of that verse to explain that exact friction.
Okay, how so?
Well, it references the Greek word kataleben, which is often translated as comprehended or overcame, but a more accurate, visceral translation actually means to seize, to aggressively grasp, or to extinguish.
Oh, so the text is saying the darkness tried to seize the light.
Exactly. It reached out to crush it, and it failed. The darkness could not extinguish it.
Wow.
Therefore, the source concludes that a dark, hostile environment is not evidence that the darkness is winning. It is merely evidence that light hasn't arrived there yet.
That reframing is incredible. So darkness can be thick, it can be intimidating, but it does not have the capacity to snuff out a light that simply refuses to be hidden.
Right. So if a space is incredibly dark, it's not a threat.
It's an invitation.
Yes. The dossier refers to these dark spaces as coordinates or assignments. It proposes that the places you are actively avoiding because they feel too heavy or too dysfunctional are exactly the places you are meant to step into.
Think about the most frustrating, chaotic area of your life or your community right now. The natural human instinct is to run away to somewhere brighter, somewhere comfortable.
Of course it is.
But this framework suggests that specific dark address is your assignment. You aren't supposed to escape it, you're supposed to illuminate it.
But realizing your chaotic workplace is actually, your assignment requires a massive behavioral shift.
It really does. It means moving from the safety of a private, interior life out into the vulnerability of public exposure. Day 4 tackles this directly.
Yeah, that transition from private to public is a major focus. It references a verse in Philippians about shining as lights in the midst of a crooked generation. And what stands out there is the source's heavy critique of what it calls aesthetic faith.
Oh, aesthetic faith. Here's where it gets really interesting. Aesthetic faith is this modern phenomenon of curating a beautiful, deeply personal internal life.
Right, the journaling and the meditation.
Yeah, you have your leather-bound journals full of profound insights, an incredible solo meditation practice. You read all the right philosophy, but you have absolutely zero public witness.
You keep all of that acquired wisdom entirely to yourself.
Exactly. And the dossier is unapologetically blunt about this.
Yeah.
It states that private faith costs nothing and requires no courage. But the real gut punch is how it describes the collateral damage of staying hidden.
The invisible cost.
Yes. The dossier argues that when you choose invisibility, you aren't the one paying the price for it. The cost is paid by someone else in your orbit who is navigating in the dark without a reference point.
That is such a profound way to look at it.
Right. Imagine a younger colleague trying to navigate a serious ethical dilemma at work.